Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Carson Gibbons here for the weekly catch-up podcast. As always, I'm sitting here with my great friend, Mr. Bradley Colvin.
Hey everyone,
Mr. Bradley, episode 5.
we've made it. I guess it's like a real thing now.
Yeah, it's like our what do they call the 5th anniversary? Is that the golden or what? Do you know the breakdowns with the medals of like different anniversaries?
I know that it exists. I don't.
Okay.
Wood. I don't like. I
Th-
don't-
Things that intrigue Carson, followed by, yeah, I'd like to know that as well with Bradley. How are you, man?
I'm doing great for a Wednesday. It's been a pretty easy week. My sophomores are gone on their Big Bend trip, and they're the last class that I teach. And so I've been done by like noon every day this week. It's been pretty great.
Yeah, you hit me up early for the podcast, which I was excited to go ahead and get recording early, and you showed up even earlier than your early ETA, and I insisted on taking a shower and doing my hair because I thought it would raise the production value of the podcast if I felt.
I mean, whatever puts you in your comfort zone, that's quite all right. Yeah, I'm typically early everywhere I go, so
That's a great quality,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
especially for a teacher, for a guy, for just an upstanding member of society. Like, there are definitely people that get places early. You're one of them. I would say, well, let me ask you, which one do you think that I am? Do you think I get places early, on time, or late?
Just from hanging out with you over the years, I think that you like to make an entrance, so I feel like you're typically like I feel like you could be on time. It's not like you're running around and like, oh no, I forgot to do this. Like I think you just kind of like showing up late.
That is, you know me really, really well. That is,
Yeah,
I feel like there's a breakdown between personal and professional, and I think personal, I'm intentionally, depending on the event,
yeah, for sure.
15 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes late. Yeah, I like making an entrance, but I recently went to some friend's engagement party, and I really felt like I needed to be there like right on time. I didn't really know what the agenda was or anything like that.
Yeah,
So it started at 5. I get there at 5:10, and I'm going to go ahead and say that probably 85% of total attendees to the party were already there. So I just bulldozed through the crowd like I knew probably 90% of the people there. So I literally made a lap, like hugged babies, shook hands, did whatever. Um, and then got back to the front, and that's when the bride and groom were walking through the door.
mm,
So then we got to have our first powwow with them, and everyone was clapping for their entrance and everything.
yeah.
But it was like I hit everybody, and then I could just go and enjoy the night. So it was like a perfect late entrance where I still made it in time for the grand reveal, which I didn't even know was part of the agenda.
Yeah, I get that. Um, what's that saying? It's like, well, like I typically arrive 10 to 15 minutes early and I feel on time. And whenever I'm on time, I feel like I'm late.
Hmm.
I also like
If
making,
you're on
like,
time, you're late.
yeah, I also don't like being the last person there. So, like, I feel like if I typically show up early, I can always kind of bounce like 2/3 of the way through and
That's
kind
a
of
good
feel like I
point.
did my part, and had some good face time with whoever I'm hanging out with.
Well, regardless of how we got here and the fact that you were early, greatly appreciated. It is episode 5 of the
Yes.
weekly catch up podcast. Thanks to everyone who's listened, tweeted, Facebooked, left us a review on Apple Podcasts. We've gotten some great listens. Seems like a pretty good cluster of our friends and family are kind of actively engaged in the week to week. It was interesting, like debuting the 4th episode, which let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. That was definitely a let our hair down episode. Apologies to all the multitudes of fans for just dropping the F bomb. I think
Yeesh.
Bradley really just had a heart attack after that. We had to wrap the
Yeah.
podcast right.
I just didn't know how to act.
Now we should use that as like a promo, like
Oh
because
man.
episode 4 is not doing as well as the others.
Yeah.
So yeah, Carson drops the F bomb in episode 4. Go
Oh
have a
man.
listen.
Yeah.
No, it was tastefully edited. Thank you to Bradley Redban over here.
Yeah, that's my job apparently.
Well, yeah, it's been also thanks for coming over, given the fact that we're having like an ice monsoon that's hitting Dallas Fort Worth at this point.
Yeah, I'm just it's It's freezing out here. I feel like I'm back in Maryland or something with all the rain that we've been having and just being cold, man. Had to turn on my heater for the first time yesterday.
Oh man. So I've lived in two buildings historically that were older. One was actually in Baltimore, Maryland. It was like a cool high rise downtown. I lived on the 11th story, and they had this chiller heater situation where you could only run like AC or heat.
Mm,
So they would basically toggle the switch like apartment complexes whenever the temperature dips below 35 or 40 or something like that, so many consecutive days, they toggle the switch and then you don't have access to whatever you just had access to. So
yikes!
yesterday, my current apartment notified us that they were switching that over because it's an older building. I live in
Right,
there's like 20 apartments in the entire building type situation. And that is the worst day of my life because if you know me, I
you
like to
keep it
hang meat.
cold, baby.
That's how my mom is. That's how my uncle is. That's just the way I was raised. And I legitimately like to keep it at about 58 degrees Fahrenheit when I sleep.
That's no lie. I'm shivering as I speak.
The normal routine was like 58, 58 at night, and then I would raise it to about 65 for when I wasn't there.
Wow.
But when electric bills are 30% of your rent, you're like, okay, something's wrong.
Right.
So what's been up this week?
Oh,
I last saw
nothing's.
you Wednesday.
Yeah. My mom's birthday was on Monday, so I'm going out to see her this weekend,
Happy
celebrate
birthday,
her.
mom.
Yeah. And this past weekend was um, my high school's alumni weekend.
Oh
It's
yeah, we teased that last week.
well,
How was that?
it was great. I sang on the praise team for like the first time in 10 or 11 years. That was my first time on stage singing. I don't typically like doing that, but my old choir director asked if I would help out, and I really respect that guy. So I decided to um, entertain him and go do that. And then I got to see a bunch of old friends, had some good food, and then let's see. I don't really
But
know what else
back up
happened.
real quick.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why do you not enjoy being in front for the praise team stuff anymore?
There are better people with better voices. Like, I mean, I enjoy singing. I don't think I have a terrible voice, but I get really nervous, and I know there's people that are better at it than myself. And I like more of like a one-on-one type of thing. Like, I love being at church and like going around and wishing everyone like a good day and just chatting with them. But as far as like all eyes on me while I'm up on stage, not a fan of that.
Are we talking about like a solo or because
Yeah, well, I mean,
I've
so
seen
there
you
were like
sing in so many different formats with like 100 people on stage, with 20, with four, with one. What number does it start to get really nerve wracking?
So I can definitely sing like in a choir easily. That doesn't bother me at all. But like this past weekend, it was just three singers, including me, and I was the only male. So it's like, and like I'm also not really good at like singing harmonies and stuff like that, and I ended up having to do that. And so I think it went well. We got some compliments afterward, um, but it's just like outside of my comfort zone, really.
Yeah, I I had one solo once in my life, and I think it was the second grade talent show at Bethany Christian School, and I was a big Billy Joel fan in second
Ooh,
grade, and I think it was a Billy Joel song or something, and I was trying to sing and play the piano, like Christina Aguilera style, like
I
all
didn't even know you played the piano.
yeah, for years.
Wow.
I've done a lot of things that you don't know about for 2 years. Like growing up,
And
I
then
was I was a gymnast. Did you know that?
I had no idea.
Yeah, I trained at the same gym that Nastia Lukin and Carly Patterson trained at.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I wasn't on their level.
Well, yeah,
I
I
was like,
don't think
I
we'd
was
be
like,
here.
woo, the foam pit.
Right. Wow.
I
Well,
did that for 2 years. I was a horseback rider for 2 years.
what?
Yeah, like to the point that we like were working at the stables like part time, and like we could just go like saddle up and like do our thing. Like we wanted to show horses at one point.
My mind, my mind is blown. I cannot
The
imagine you
fact
doing
that
all these
you didn't even
things.
know this is like it's funny because now that I have more of a frame of reference, like looking back, I guess maybe back in the day it was like, oh, Carson's a quitter or something. Because I definitely did all of these things pretty aggressively for 2 years at a time. So I
Yeah.
played piano for 2 years.
And then you were over it.
I played Fur de Lis or whatever the famous thing is
Sure.
at my piano recital. I played Titanic, My Heart Must Go On.
Oh,
Ooh,
man.
you have no idea.
Pulling on the heartstrings.
Yeah, I would just sit around and listen to that Celine Dion
Yeah.
CD and cry. And
I did karate for 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, I got a yellow belt, and then one day I showed up for sparring, and I wasn't wearing my cup for some reason, and some girl like kicked me in my privates, and I cried in front of everyone, and then I never went back. I got a yellow belt and bounced.
She's like, I thought this was self-defense class.
Yeah.
This perp needs to get off.
No, man.
How old were you?
I was like in second grade, I think, second or third grade.
I'm trying to. What are you? 8, 9?
Yeah, probably around 9 years old.
I never remember because I don't know any kids.
Yeah, and I don't teach elementary, but that seems like a 9 or 10-year-old thing.
That's too funny. What else? What else did you do for 2 years?
Collected Pokemon cards.
Yeah, man, I sold Pokemon cards.
Dude, I have all original 151 Pokemon cards in a binder. I got that Charizard.
Really?
Yeah, man, I'm waiting for that price to go up.
I slang those things like I was a drug dealer that didn't do drugs. Like I didn't know. Like I'd seen some episodes. I thought I was hip to it. I'm like, yeah, man, that's Pikachu. Like, but what I would do is instead of a lemonade stand, I would go to the top of the street and like literally set up like it was like that 5-cent nickel psychiatric help from Charlie Brown.
Right.
I would set up a little stand like that, and I'd have a binder full of Pokemon cards. And I grew up in this like leather bracelet, puka shell type neighborhood. So all these little white boys were like getting off of their little half ramps.
Yeah. Their Razor scooters.
Yeah. They were like, cool. And I would sell them. And yeah,
Man.
Often didn't really understand, I think, the value. I don't know if there were sets that if you got this many in this set or this year, like you had the complete, but some guys were more savvy to that than me. And oh yeah, I'll take that one in particular.
Yeah.
So
you got your first and second editions and holographic cards and whatnot.
Yeah, you and our friends Michael and Shelly are super into Pokemon Go. They're always playing Pokemon Go, and they'll go places with like 50 or 100 people sometimes.
Oh wow!
And they'll send out like an Instagram story or whatever, and it's like literally 75 people in a field or a park, like chasing Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I don't understand the cyclical nature of this because when it first came out, like you saw everybody on the street corner.
That's what I was about to say. Whenever it first came out, I spent the first 2 weeks playing it, and
you were one of them.
Yeah, but it came out. I played for 2 weeks, and then I went on a cruise, and I got back, and I was like, I don't know. Dude, I felt like I got behind or something, and I just quit.
They're all caught.
Yeah.
When it first came out, I was actually on a pretty raucous bachelor party in New Orleans with like 13 dudes.
Yeah.
And we're all in this like big attic apartment. It was really awesome. We had hammocks strung from like the different beams, and it was like true New Orleans style. And so we're going out to the casinos. We're going out on alligator tours and doing all of this different stuff. And it was funny because the guys were just splitting time between catching Pokemon and like cruising through Tinder group, like trying to like, drum up some bachelor party shenanigans. But it was so funny because I was like,
I feel like there's a correlation there. Like there's a reason you're on Tinder swiping, and that reason is because you're playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah, I'm not even familiar with all the Tinder variations or like Tinder group or Bumble BFF. Like there's so many different platforms now, and I don't know if we talked about Facebook rolling out dating, but that's truly.
I think we've talked about that like off mic for just like briefly,
like horror.
But yeah, I really don't know much about it.
So that's Pokemon Go. So I was like kind of a casual consumer, if you will. What else were you into?
Oh, I briefly like Yu-Gi-Oh, which is like the same concept. I was into video games for a long time, and then like I kind of stopped playing in high school. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I was never really allowed to do video games too much. Like I think that I remember having to fight pretty hard over some time to like get a Game Boy type deal. And that was back when like Mario and like I was, jumping on turtle heads and stuff and getting like a Game Boy or my dad's old Palm Pilot and playing like Brick Breaker or something like I mean that was I'm a little bit older than you, not by
Yeah.
much, but I mean that was that was what was going on back
Right,
then.
right.
But I wasn't they did let me play Oregon Trail.
Ooh.
Um, and I was just kind of a real doo-doo head with Oregon Trail because I would just, I would be packing the rations for the trip. And what do you think your boy took? Nothing but bullets.
That's right.
And then I would just go out and I would shoot everything on the range. And then everybody would die of dysentery within 6 days. And,
That sounds about right, man.
so the games were like, I mean, I don't know how long your longest Oregon Trail hike or trek was, but mine was about 6 miles.
Couldn't even make it out of the parking lot.
No.
Oh man. Yeah, but that was kind of my weekend. What did you end up doing this weekend?
This weekend. Oh, I actually had some cool stuff go on this weekend. I had dinner with some friends at Banditos on Friday night, and that's a staple. I love that. I need to take you there sometime.
Yes, please.
I don't believe we've ever been.
No, we'll hit up Mansfield and then Banditos.
Yeah, opposite direction, but it's north of here. I don't know if it's a chain or what. I actually used to eat at a Banditos in Baltimore. Uh,
Hmm.
did you ever go down there on Charles in Fed Hill?
I don't recall. I don't think so.
Okay. Well, Fed Hill, there was a Banditos, and it was like there was two kind of not Tex-Mexy but Mexican-y options whenever I was living in Baltimore that I kind of clung to, and Banditos was one of them. And then I come back and like there's this great place in Snyder Plaza called Banditos
Okay.
that's actually like really good.
Nice.
So I went there with some friends on Friday and had it was like a good extended conversation with some really close friends type deal. And then Saturday morning, got up and went to the gun range with our friends John and Michael. And geez, dude, like John brought some artillery.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was scary. No, I shot an AR-15 actually.
How was that?
It was cool. Like he had built it basically from the ground up. Like he stripped it apart. That's the weird thing about these guns. Like they'll strip them apart and they'll show you like this is the actual gun part, and it's just like a piece of plastic looking.
Yeah.
It's not anything intimidating. But he'd built like a scope with like a laser. Like basically, I had to like I'm a little bit bigger than he is, but I had to extend the bump stock or whatever it is.
Okay.
The bump stock, that's the bad thing, but the the handle, I don't even know what I'm saying here, but I had to extend it, and then I was trying to like look through the scope through the laser to see the target, and I was having a hard time getting the alignment because we're just sized differently.
Got it.
But I ended up getting a couple rounds off, and it was funny because the kick on the AR-15 was actually probably equal or more minimal than the kick from my Glock 43,
Hmm.
which I couldn't believe. But yeah, I was excited because I went and got fingerprinted for my LTC, my license to carry, last week, and so hadn't been to the range with John. He'd wanted to bring some of the big boys out, and I got to tell you though, there was one guy next to us that I don't know what he was shooting, but like literally, we're all at the range, right? Like
Yeah.
there's probably 10 lanes, and 1 through 8 are like normal guns. Like even an AR-15 is a normal gun compared to whatever this guy was shooting because there was a flame coming out of out of the side.
Whoa.
Um, yeah, it was like literally everybody quit shooting and like went to go look at what was being fired,
Yeah.
and it was obnoxious. And then 2 lanes over from him, the same gun was being fired with a silencer or whatever it's called on it,
Okay.
and it was just like, thank you, dude. Like
Right.
it's like, way to not put a big old muffler on the back of that already big truck. You know what I mean? Like those people that just, I hate those
Have
people.
no regard.
Yeah. Anyway, so
All right.
we did that. We went to brunch. Oh, I don't think I've even told you this. So Carson is going to be Reverend Carson.
What?
Yes.
Are you officiating?
I'm embarking on a monastic lifestyle for the remainder of my days.
Wow.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm gonna get
Okay.
reverend up online somehow because I am officiating a wedding.
That's incredible.
Can you believe that?
I cannot. You before me?
That is surprising, isn't it?
That kind of is. Well, whose wedding is this?
So, two of our friends, two of my best friends, oldest, longest friends, really unique situation when like your female bestie and one of your male besties like start dating and then get engaged and then they get married.
Yeah.
But our friends Michael and Shelly are getting married next year, and they asked me at brunch on Sunday or Saturday if I would marry them. And I was like, well, guys, this seems like an untraditional lifestyle, but maybe we could talk about it. And they were like, no.
No.
I was like, oh.
But
No, they asked me to officiate. They said, you're kind of at the origin of a bunch of our story, which was like, I don't know. It was super meaningful. Like it was moving.
Yeah,
because
I think that's great.
I think everybody associated with that wedding, some of us were concerned at different points, like, are we going to be a bridesmaid or are we going to be a groomsman or whatever it's called? And I told Michael immediately, I was like, dude, this is like way more meaningful than like groomsmen. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the fact that in front of God and all these witnesses, 100 of our best friends, essentially.
You're helping them seal the deal.
Yeah. And it was funny because they were like, we want you to be Carson, but not to Carson. Like,
yeah. Yeah. They can't edit and like bleep you out like live,
I'm sure swearing will be allowed at this wedding. No, I think that they're looking for, I mean, I want a lot of it to be a surprise, of course.
Yes, but, absolutely.
It's just interesting. I think that, and I'm not going to reveal who is on each side of this, but one of them wants to write custom wedding vows, and one of them wants to say "I do." And don't go prying because I don't want to. I'm already blowing up their spot on this podcast, but it leads me to a good question, which I already know you're going to write your own.
Yes, I will.
Are they already written?
No, they're not already written.
Dear insert name.
Yeah. To whom it may concern.
Yeah.
No, I have not written mine, but I will definitely be like, as a writer, I mean, it doesn't get more meaningful than writing those vows,
Yeah. I feel like I always cry when it comes to custom vows. It's just
dude,
like, it's a prereq.
I will definitely be crying at my wedding.
Oh yeah, you'll be a crier.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, like already knowing ahead of time. So whenever that day happens, gonna need some Kleenex. I don't know.
All right. Well, when is that day coming?
I don't know.
Have you seen your gal pal again since you took her to the pumpkin patch and made it all a fish?
Yeah, she. So my soccer boys, they had a playoff game on Monday, and we were fighting for third place, and we ended up winning. Shout out to them. But my girlfriend, her brothers are seniors on the team, and so she came to support them as well. So yeah, I got to see her.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Well, everything going well with that?
Everything's going swimmingly, man.
How's shout out to the guy that I labeled a chump again last week.
He's doing better. He's doing much better. Yeah.
Spirits picked up?
He actually, I told him to come into my classroom, just so we could, because he had texted me the other day, but I was already like getting ready for bed and everything. So I just told him to come to my classroom. So he came in today and, we just chatted, and he's in much brighter and better spirits. So I'm really happy for him. He's thought about what I said, like, he took some of my advice, and he's going to be all right.
It's already somebody new.
Nailed it.
Yeah. It's like, I just heard all these words, but all I pictured was like a scope. Like, there's somebody new in the crosshairs.
Yeah, he'll be okay. That's how high schoolers, that's how they roll.
Well, that's cool, man. Yeah, no, I had all that good stuff happen to me over the weekend. Also, our friend John, who's also getting married.
Yes.
Who, ironically enough, is Shelly's big brother. And they're getting married like a week apart. I think I'm going to be a groomsman in that wedding.
Okay.
And that one's a little bit different in that I don't know his fiance to the extent that I know both parties in the Michael Shelly situation.
Right.
But I absolutely love her.
Yeah, she's great.
Shout out Sarah. You guys you're actually going to be inheriting them because they're going to move to Fort Worth, and you guys are
Right.
just going to do your running club stuff.
And I don't know anymore because I had been running with them, but that running group meets on Wednesdays, and this is when we record.
Oh, well,
So John had actually texted me last week, but I was in the middle of recording with you.
well,
So
we can
yeah,
always
we can
swap out dates
finagle it
or
around or
yeah, yeah.
something. But yeah, no, it's been great just hanging out with them and getting to know them. They're both really good people.
Oh yeah. Plus, you wouldn't want to run the day. It's like 33 degrees
Oh
and
yeah,
sleeting or something.
yeah.
Like
We'll revisit that
I played,
next year.
I played 54 holes of golf Sunday and Monday.
How'd you do?
Um, yeah, so golf was great. No,
Play best ball?
it sucked because no, the first round I've been playing with my buddy, my cousin Scott.
Okay.
I've actually been doing some freelance work with him for his land development that he's doing up in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. He's got like 340 acres that he bought way back in the day, and now he's like gone through the trouble of cutting roads and putting in electric and surveying the land, and he just parceled off like the first 30 lots, and he sold almost all of them already to
Oh
like
wow.
some pretty kind of affluent, cool people. Like I think he has an ex NFL player. He has just a bunch of like kind of Dallas affluent couples and families, if you will, like building a second vacation home. And
Yeah.
um, so anyway, he's been golfing with me a lot recently. And last Tuesday, I kind of kicked him all over the course.
Oh.
Normally, we have a betting system worked out where normally he plays like gold tees, I'll play blue tees, or he'll play blue, I'll play white. And then he's been taking me to new courses that I've never played before. So typically in that situation, I get a stroke a hole.
Yeah.
So if he shoots par, I can shoot a bogey and we bump.
Got it.
But that particular day, he took me to a new course and I won both sides. Like he was actually very frustrated because the reason I know that he was frustrated is because he hit me up within 4 or 5 days to like golf again. He was like, and he
Oh,
called it
he
a
needed some
rematch.
payback. Yeah.
So he's like, "Can you be at the house by 2? I want a rematch." And I'm like, "All right, I've awoken the beast here."
Man.
But he's also exposing me to all these like, cool golf courses that of my own volition I wouldn't probably venture out to just
Right.
alone. So the first Sunday round, I won the front nine, actually, as weird as
Hmm.
that is. But then I just cratered. I hadn't eaten on the back nine, so he took the round narrowly. He didn't win the maximum amount of money that he could.
Okay.
So we're big smack talkers to each other. So
I can imagine.
I made sure to let him know that the money that I was handing to him was just me returning a portion of the money that he'd given me the week prior.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm competitive with him, which
You're competitive with most.
he's definitely better than me. But it just sucks because on the rounds that I lose, then he gets to give me tips on how to get better at the game all the way home.
Oh.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, this pro over here maybe could line up that swing, or like maybe you looked at this new golf club, and I'm like, if I just won, we
We wouldn't be.
because I'm like, yeah, I know how to optimize my game. I could hire a trainer. I could like
Yeah.
get $2,000 fitted shaft clubs. Like, that's not the point. The point is to play well consistently with good clubs, bad clubs, whatever you have, because you're mentally tough. You know the course, you know the game, and you're patient with it.
Yeah.
And so that's this whole year. This is the first year that I've really picked up playing like a lot of golf.
Okay, so that means you have one more year until you quit.
No, that's pretty funny, actually. Yeah, I'm going to do my golf recital and then I'm going to bow and
Yeah.
that's it. No, no, I actually think that I did golf as a kid. I think my dad got me, I think he got me clubs as like a toddler or a club.
Right.
And he definitely played for some business and he was more into squash or no, I'm sorry, racquetball. He
Okay.
was a big racquetball guy. Um, he always did a lot more racquetball than golf. I'm more the golfer in the family, but he's definitely. I mean, he can go out there and shoot bogey, double bogey golf like without having played in a year.
Yeah.
So he's pretty
Not too
athletic.
shabby.
He was the real gymnast, believe it or not, like competitive touring,
I can see that.
that type of thing. Um, where was I going with all that?
You just
Oh,
playing
this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was telling my cousin, like, I just bought the cheapest set of clubs on Amazon after I got back from YC in April. Once I'd like practiced, I think 30 or 40 times when I was out in Mountain View
Yeah.
with my old set. So it was really more about a commitment to the game and like, being healthy and walking around. And I wanted to adopt this for life. So I'll slowly accrue all of these things, but that's just my big gripe about losing.
Okay.
And then my buddy David Richardson actually took off work on Monday, and it was right as like all of this inclement weather was coming in, and so we golfed the last 6 hours of appropriate weather time in Dallas before the freeze and the rain came. We ended up golfing like 36 holes that day.
Wow.
So we played 36 in like 5-6 hours.
Okay. Wow.
Um,
That's a lot.
and I was double bogey golf all day. No, actually, the second 18, I probably parred 9 or 10 holes,
Yeah.
but otherwise it was like I put a 9 on the scorecard, and anytime you put a 9 on a hole, you're screwed.
Well, there you have it.
So, but I was talking to this guy. I was actually playing with Scott. I don't remember where. I don't remember if I told you about this guy, but we played with this dude that actually runs a golf journalism like online publication.
Okay.
It's called like world's greatest golf destinations.com or something like that. And he was basically like, yeah, I get all these trips to like, these bougie resorts all over the world. And they're like, come review us, come write an article. We'll put you up. You can play golf, talk to the superintendent or whatever. And he's like, I've got so many trips that I don't want to go on all of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, what's the deliverables here? Like, you write a story. Is there audio, visual, video? Is there a podcast? Like, and he's like taking notes,
Yeah. He's like, oh,
like I'm
that's a good
immediately like,
idea.
oh yeah, how are you growing this? This is
Right.
awesome. And he was like, yeah, we could add some of those things on. And so we ended up exchanging contact info, and I wasn't
Are
really
you about to fly out for this man and check
Yeah,
out some of these
seriously.
courses?
Well, that's the angle that I was thinking about playing it, because I don't really view it as like a longer term money making opportunity per se. But I mean, if they were to fly me to the Zozo Championship, where
Yeah.
Tiger just won his 82nd event on the PGA Tour,
That's right.
nobody has won more tournaments than Tiger Woods on the PGA Tour. We'll come back to that because that's a big deal.
Whoa.
But the Zozo course over there in Japan, that looks beautiful. And if they're going to fly me to a resort, to a place I've never been, to play
Yeah.
golf on like,
That
$1,000 courses,
in and of itself is
heck yeah.
phenomenal.
Heck yeah.
Okay.
Have not followed up with him.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we'll see.
all right.
No, I took my career. Like I've been playing some opportunities right now, like doing some freelance, doing this podcast, and then milking some conversations with some people that I've known about some potential projects that we might do together.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I know you had written up something this morning, and I didn't know if you had any updates just as far as what's going on in that aspect.
Yeah. So I've been having a conversation that's been taking place over the last probably 4 or 6 weeks, and were all of that to work out, I'd probably sign on the dotted line and go do that, because it sounds like it'd be a cool gig. And that's all I'm going to say about that one right now.
That's all right.
But what do they say? A bird in the
Bird in the hand.
bird in the hand. Yeah. What is that?
Yeah.
Bottom line, I flooded the market today because
Hey.
I was like, I'm not going to count my eggs before they're hatched or anything like that.
Don't count the bird before they're in your hand. I just want to be the dad that like mixes up like two quotes together and just talks nonsense, and it like sounds like advice, but it's just nonsense.
You got another one?
Nope.
I want you to come up with 3 more before this podcast is
All
over.
right, hey, I'll be thinking on it.
Because
Continue.
now I am, and I'm totally derailed.
Yeah.
No, I was trying to. I hadn't really gone super public on, Twitter or LinkedIn, like, hey, I left my company, blah blah blah. But today I wrote a article on LinkedIn, and it was basically just, I was very blunt, like, I'm writing this to basically provide some historical context about where I've been. for potential employers that are interested in learning more about me.
Yeah.
And then I just talk about, the different sales pipelines that I've built over the years for, you know, everything from creative services, human capital, to creative services at an ad agency, to traditional and online media, uh, to jobs packages, to, startup world. And so it went really well. Like I was glad that I just kind of, I was proactive about that, because, it's already, what time is it? Like three something, four something. And I've already scheduled like two or three phone call interviews, and just from my own network of
Let's
people that read
go.
the blog. And shout out to the people that support and like reshared it. Like my buddy Jake, who's very connected in that world. He's up at Toyota Connected. He just flew to Tokyo.
Mm,
I don't know if I told you about
you did
this, but
not.
this dude, first of all, he's hired like hundreds of developers since he started at Toyota Connected, but he's since kind of worked his way up into this. I don't even know what his technical role is anymore. He's like running Scrum for like this agile recruiting team that is recruiting developers, but he's also, I feel like, participating more in like the managed output at this point.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they had this thing like, hey, submit your ideas. Maybe you get to go to Tokyo, or, you get patented. And so he did that. And like multiple ideas of his were the front runners, and he was flown to Tokyo.
Wow.
And there's follow up like executive committees that he's forming out of this. And like, I mean, he is, I told him today, I was like, boy, who would have thought you would be Mr. Corporate Innovation out
Yeah,
of,
that's
like,
crazy.
because he,
Congrats, Jake.
yeah, man. So he's connected me with a couple of people, but yeah, I just have some exciting conversations going with primarily software as a service companies. Um, my preference being, I want to work with something new and exciting, like, something API centric. Not, I haven't applied at Oracle or I don't even know. Microsoft, I saw a very lucrative role for them out of
Yeah.
Dallas, but now we have, I mean, there's a Salesforce building in Dallas now,
Right.
like 2 miles from here. So they have a big hub out of here. I have some friends over at, I probably shouldn't say all the names, but I sent out some Twitter DMs today. I wrote a LinkedIn article, and just by doing some of these little things, like I kicked up some interest, and like I checked out the analytics breakdown on like who viewed the article, and I was like, all right, cool, because it was like a bunch of investors and founders and people in San Francisco, New York, Dallas, London. They'd read the post, they'd
Yeah.
interacted with it, and then I got a bunch of DMs
That's
off of that.
wonderful.
So just trying to make sure that I'm maintaining progress towards the inevitable goal, which is I want to go into the new year understanding how I'm going to spend the bulk of my waking hours, Monday through Friday at least.
I
I
like
want
that.
to know what I'm going to be focused on, and so I just posted to LinkedIn, looking to join a dynamic, team that's focused on revenue growth, partnerships, and community.
Yeah.
So that's really it's been a good day
That's cool, man.
as a result.
I like
So
that.
yeah, it's interesting. I haven't brushed things up and like kind of gone out and looked at the market in quite a while, and it's kind of exciting. It's kind of like I just lost some weight and I'm back on the dating scene or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey,
Swipe right.
yeah, hire me.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I'm just, plugging away in my classroom and putting out a lot of students have come like recently to confide in me and like their relationships and stuff. I told you about that one guy, and then I had a group chat with some of my students yesterday, and they were asking me about dating, and they asked me the question, um, do you think it's okay to like date around without any intention of you know marrying them or anything like that? And they're trying to figure out how they feel about it, and so that was interesting.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All right. So good luck. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm
because
saying. Like everybody's different. Everybody like has an agenda and like what they're searching for, and they as I was telling them, I was like, you can take advice from your parents or whoever, but also dating has changed since you know I first started dating. It's certainly changed since like our parents were in the dating scene, and these kids, their attention spans are just like so short, and they have so much at their fingertips. It's like, well, this person doesn't like the same music as me, so that's not going to work out. Like, it's something as petty as that, because they just have so many options that it's just hard for them to stick with one person. And I was just trying to, convey and relay that message to them. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, like, people just suck. Like, best of luck out there.
I like how you're keeping it real.
Yeah. I mean, I just told them, I was like, I envision it as like a large circle, and as you get older, that circle just starts getting smaller and smaller with like fewer people in it, and you just start narrowing down on the type of person that you would want to date. And so I don't see any harm in like dating around, but at the same time, like, don't get your hopes up, because I don't know, people.
I guess you'd have to define what dating around means, in terms of what these kids are asking. But I heard that, especially growing up in, like, obviously a more conservative Southern Bible Belt home.
Right.
I remember, I think they gave me this book at one point, by this, he was some famous Christian author guy that was like, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. And I don't know if you've read this book.
I'm not,
but it's about this dude that
I've already formed an opinion on it.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, yeah, if I'm a 34-year-old Christian author and I have all of this data to look back on, oh, totally. Like a bunch of waste of time. Like I've wasted more girls' time than, like, but I've realized, and it wasn't honestly until the last couple of years that, like, up until, I mean, maybe not even now, probably not even now, I've never actually had a need to move forward into like a real marriage, or like I wasn't, I had the intentionality and the feelings before,
Yeah.
to do all of that,
Right.
to, and that's why it's like futile to tell a 12,
Yeah.
15, 18-year-old, like, hey, just don't worry about this. Like, just see who you want to marry and just do that. And I was like, I always knew that was not going to work for me. But I didn't realize that I was not available, like, maturity wise.
Right.
Like,
emotionally. Yeah.
I think it was kind of a conquest in some ways, where, oh, this girl won't like me. Oh, she does like me. Now she wants to get married. And then it's like, well, I don't want kids. I'm not buying a house right now. Like, I'm really trying to figure out who I am in this world in many ways, up until, all through my 20s.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like in some ways we should just tell more people from an early age, like do what makes you happy.
Yeah,
there is no rule
it's
book.
all subjective. Like,
Yeah.
everybody's different. What works for me is not going to work for you or the next person. Like, we all have our own paths, and just like, best of luck, and I'm here if you need to vent, kind of thing. It's like, I can give you, all my stories, and maybe that'll help you. But at the same time, the same person that you're eventually going to date is different than the person that I was dating back then. And so it's just, I don't know. There's no one right way to do it. But yeah, so that's just kind of what I've been dealing with, along with teaching our stories. We finally finished all the novels that we're reading. So now the kids are getting ready and starting on their projects and essays. So that's exciting.
What's due? Like some sort of, I used to write, shout out Mrs. Bowser.
Hey, yeah,
I used
history.
to write literary analyses for Cash Monies.
Yeah.
Back in college, because, she used to give us that excerpt, and like, if you could only, read this about this day and age, what were the people like? And
Right.
I could wax eloquent for days on stuff like that.
Yeah. Are you saying that she paid you, or people paid you to write? Okay,
People
cool.
might have paid me to write some.
Dude, no shame.
One kid got caught though. She was like,
Oh.
"You are too dumb to have written this," and
Yeah,
he got messed up.
See, I worked at the right spot, where we would like
Oh, yeah.
proofread people's essays, and I got to where I knew like what the teacher expected of particular students. So it's like, we're gonna give you a B, buddy. Like, it's like, you're gonna pay me for an A, but we know you're not capable. Anyway,
So wait, you were skimming money in the right spot?
Never. Come on.
You teacher before you were a teacher. Teacher for profit.
Anyway, so back to the kids that I'm
I only
helping.
did that 2 or 3 times. It's funny, like, you tell people that you did that, and I viewed it like I was I was like, why aren't people more proud of me for like being smart and
Yeah,
being a capitalist? Like I was
right.
like that should be something that your parents brag about. To be like, our child's doing other people's work and
Yeah,
getting
not
paid
only
double
did he
for
write
it.
his essays, he wrote others as well.
I don't know.
Um,
College school admissions, like this was probably 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago now. So, come after me, police, I don't care. But nowadays with like Felicity Huffman just got out of prison, out of jail
yes.
for like 10, 13 days for paying off that the people that ran that racketeering scheme for the college admissions.
Yeah, they paid for their daughters to get in.
Yeah, but they had billed like I think it was in excess of $25 million
Right.
throughout this process.
Yeah.
Um, so question time for you.
Oh boy.
Have you ever been approached by a parent with any type of bribe for getting their student through a grade or passing a test, or like, have you ever been offered anything indecent in exchange for a more favorable outcome on behalf of a student?
No, I've been pleaded like, please give my child like extra credit or something like that, but they've never come to me like offering me money or anything of the sort.
All right, well,
Sorry, it's not juicy.
yeah, maybe once you bump up to the collegiate level, the
Yeah,
money
maybe so.
and the
That's where
bribes.
the money's at.
Yeah, coerce me, baby.
Yeah, they're like, we know this small Christian school is gonna push them through anyway. We
um,
don't need to waste money.
Ballpark, what kind of money is it to go to your school?
Oh man.
Because there's such a disparity. I've known people that go to public high school for free,
Right.
and then there are like my former boss's kids went to some prep schools in Dallas
Hmm.
where they're 4, 5 years old, and it's like $25,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if ours is that expensive, but I know it is. It is high up there. But our church also is. They've gotten enough donations to where I think they're paying for a total of like 10 kids to go to our school. So like we
Oh,
have
that's
people that
cool.
try to help along the way for those that can't afford it. But yeah, private school is definitely a costly expense. Pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
Are you going to send your kids to private school?
I don't know, man. I haven't decided. It's going to depend on where I am. Like I'm definitely a supporter of private schools. Like I love. Um, I went to the same school from kindergarten to 12th grade, and then I went to a private Christian university. And there's definitely a lot of values that I learned. On the other hand, there's I feel like it's a smaller school, but there's still like crazy things that go on in private schools. Like just because you're sending your kid to a
Oh,
private school, it doesn't
yeah.
mean you're avoiding a lot of things that you feared about public
No,
school.
some of them are way worse.
Yeah, I don't. They
Like
just get better at
all
hiding
of
it.
your sister schools are actual boarding academies where kids legit go crazy.
Yeah.
Like
So
that's why again, whenever your class came to school, it was refreshing to see a more modern academy that was like in the metroplex where it was a commuter school. So the kids were like more normal because they were at home watching the ball game with their parents after
right.
school. Like they weren't, husking corn in some field and then retiring for vespers or something. Like no
Yes.
shade, but all I know is that yeah, I probably shouldn't say anything more, but all those kids were very strange coming to college. So,
Yeah.
hey, but real quick,
They just don't have as much, or they just haven't gotten those social skills because they're not surrounded by more people. Anyway,
I guess so.
question.
No, speaking of Felicity Huffman, conspiracy theories, rings, I think it was you
Oh,
that tweeted out earlier.
about Epstein.
I haven't read anything about that. Have you read anything about this yet?
So I did a little reading during my free period this morning, but the doctor ruled that it was most likely a homicide. Beforehand, they were saying that he had committed suicide while he was in prison,
Well, yeah.
and so this is the guy that was caught, for having a ring of sex trafficking, and then he was
He's
killed while he was in prison.
he's far more fascinating than that.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, in some ways, he's a big mystery because I don't even know if we've discussed him on the
We
podcast
have not.
prior, but he's actually an educator.
Yeah, which sick, like,
He's a teacher. Like,
and I'm gonna get like that's something that I don't know, like I just get very upset about that kind of thing, like manipulating kids, and
Well, okay, I don't know if I'm sure that if this type of manipulation and this kind of thing was going on, up until a couple years ago, that it was going on most of his
for a
adult
long
life to a
time,
certain extent.
which is
However,
disgusting.
he so he was an educator. I think the big question in most people's minds is how did he go from being an educator? Like I think he was at the advanced collegiate level, like he was a true brainiac, like scientist or mathematician or something,
Yep.
economist. Um, Sorry for not being more precise with that, but somehow he went from that to like being an advisor and in finance and essentially getting these huge gifts and sums of money from various people.
Yeah.
And so he goes from being an educator to being a billionaire. And the big house in New York, the big penthouse that everyone is
Hmm.
always referring to, $70 million penthouse, he was given that.
Right.
We don't know why, but anyway, that was actually the penthouse where the Guardian, when I was in London, they actually had on the Guardian, on the BBC. The Guardian had reported they'd showed a video of Prince Andrew or I never remember which one it is, Prince Albert coming out of that
Oh
penthouse
yes,
with like a
yeah.
17-year-old
So he
girl.
had, yeah, Epstein had ties with him. He has had ties with Bill Clinton,
Oh,
Donald Trump.
Billy Clinton's
Yeah.
dirty on this one.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Bill. We'll come back to that real quick. But
Okay.
educator, now he's a billionaire. Now he's got the big home. He gets a private island. I guess it was known as Sex Island or something like that. Um, or now
Maybe
it's
so.
Pedophilia Island. But
Right.
essentially, you know how it goes. Like he gets one. Hey, go tell your friends. Easy way to make money. Come to this little party. These other guys are going to be there or whatever. And I don't know how many under the radar like uh, girls that he had in his actual possession, like day to day. I don't know if this was like a coercion on a Sunday afternoon situation the majority of the time. I get the sense that he probably had some slaves around him at all times,
Yeah.
but I don't know if they were like women that he or girls that he had picked up in like other countries or, that weren't wanted somewhere because, you know, even the girls that slip out for the afternoon, the assumption is they're wanted back somewhere.
Right.
Home is somewhere or, the shelter or whatever is going on. Um, but anyway, yeah, he showed up dead in his prison cell.
Yeah, and I mean, the conspiracy theorists, like, I don't think it's like a conspiracy. It's just extremely sketchy how, both cameras were all of a sudden turned off during, whoever was killing him or murdering him, and the guards had fallen asleep. It was just, I don't know. He could have taken down a lot of people with him, and so somebody with a lot of money
Well, literal
took him out.
royalty, ex presidents. I mean, Bill Clinton here, ex governor of Arkansas. He flew on Jeffrey's plane 26 times. Okay,
Right.
26 times his private plane.
Yeah.
Okay, so goodness.
Yeah. There are some emails deleted there.
I mean, the Clintons have long been
Yeah.
suspected of by certain deranged and becoming seemingly more mainstream conspiracy theorists like over the years. The whole Seth Rogen case that Sean
Mhm.
Hannity got in big trouble for, a bunch of people got in trouble for. Kind of, they said that it was a robbery gone wrong, but he had his wallet and his phone and everything still
Yeah.
in his pocket, and he was rumored to have done the WikiLeaks for the Democratic, the DNC email bank or
Hmm.
something of that effect. And it was debunked. He Fox News was told to apologize. All of this stuff, like it's a debunked conspiracy theory. But then you have one of these that's just served up to you on a silver platter with Bill Clinton's name all over it,
Yeah.
and you're just like, what gives, you know?
I don't know, man. Um, this just reminds me of the idea because like I said, I had just finished To Kill a Mockingbird with my juniors, and we were just talking today, like how the book talks about whenever Tom Robinson, the black man, walks into the courthouse, the people had already made up their mind, and I feel like that sentiment is true today. Like, no, regardless of um, who's on the stand or whatever, or how you feel about Bill Clinton, like a lot of us have probably already made up our mind, um, before this evidence had been brought to us.
About what? About his guilt,
Yeah,
or
about him being guilty, or
yeah? I mean, he wasn't.
same with his wife.
He was a predator. Or are we talking about Bill, or are we talking about Jeffrey?
I mean, I was talking about Bill, but I
Oh
mean the same applies to
no,
Jeffrey too.
the thing is, I love Bill Clinton. I really do. I mean, he's a schmoozer and a hat. He's an inspiration. Like that Southern drawing, like he goes straight.
He's a schmoozer, but
I
I
mean,
mean,
Frank Underwood was like based on them. I feel like
yeah, House of Cards.
I don't know.
But
It's
if he's schmoozing,
no. If he was involved with pedophilia or any
right?
underage activity, that's just not. That's not allowed.
Okay,
That's not an
yeah,
option. Sorry, I was zoning.
that just needed to be said. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Was I condoning that for a second?
I mean, I just wanted you to say it so people aren't getting that.
I got
idea.
confused as to whether or not we were talking about Jeffrey Epstein or Bill Clinton.
Yeah, no, you're
No,
good.
I think Bill Clinton. I that is a weird thing for me in that I say he's guilty as sin. He flew in that plane 26 times, but I love Bill Clinton,
Right.
so I don't really know what to think there. Like
Yeah.
I don't. I want to think that it's a happy coincidence that he was on the plane 26 times and that he never did anything wrong, or you know. I don't know. It's one of those. Maybe she was 18 or something. Like maybe he barely snuck in under the radar, and that's a. I mean, shame on anybody that says she just turned 18. That's a terrible thing. But
don't throw glass at stone houses.
Man, well, I'm anxious to see what comes out about that. Like, I feel like everything's a conspiracy in this day and age. Like, I don't know, just all the different with the impeachment inquiry going on, with all the connections that people are making between. Well, Jeffrey Epstein was prosecuted by Rudy Giuliani's personal attorney lawyer over here, and he died in a Trump administration prison. Like the same way that you're able to say, oh, look at my economy, look at all the jobs that I created, even though you know you you might have harnessed an overall spirit that led to an optimism. And the tax cuts were good for big business, obviously. It's more controversial, I guess, if you're a Democrat, but even the middle class, I'd say a good majority of our friends are experiencing better IRAs and, retirement accounts and take-home pay even. Like, did you get a bump? Did you get more take-home pay after the tax act?
Yes, a little bit, but I was also in Maryland where they have even more state taxes. So,
oh yeah, they do have state taxes there,
right? And so I didn't get to experience the full effect, and I won't even this year because I spent half the year working in Maryland. So next year will be a nice year for me, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of people received a direct bump in their pay whenever the taxes went down, but I don't know, man. What's the vibe? I know that. I mean, Trump just went through Keene, where you teach. It seemed like people were lining the streets with American flags.
They were over by that Dollar General. Just they brought out lawn chairs, and we're just hanging out. My Nana was telling me
all
that
just
she
to see the chopper, right?
Right. Yeah, he didn't even drive through. He just. Yeah. So people, I don't know.
Do you remember?
It was kind of annoying.
Were you there the year that was it George W. was coming through Keene on Old Betsy?
I don't recall.
I remember standing out there with our friend Sarah
Osborne?
Yes. What, Sarah Miller now?
Yes.
Yes. I remember standing out there with her and Casey, the RTF guy.
Okay.
I don't remember. I think it was like a Wounded Warrior thing or something to that effect. But so I was picturing that whenever I saw these people lining Old Betsy for Trump. And then I realized that the chopper just went over for like a split second.
Just a waste of time, just hindered my ride home.
But outside of so here's my question. Outside of the Adventist community there, I assume that it's pretty red. It's Johnson County. It's more rural Texas. It's a bunch of gun-toting, pro-life, Christian-based type people. It's Trump country there. What has the Adventist faith, like from the sermons that you've picked up or anything that you've been around? I know that you don't go to church every week, but you're definitely involved with all of this stuff, much more so than I am at this point. Have they adopted the overall evangelical tradition at this point of like just blindly apologizing for the president? And like, have you ever
it feels more passive aggressive, like just being like, we've been called here to love everyone, which I totally agree with. Um, the sentiments that they're saying, but I feel like a lot of times they do beat around the bush because they don't want to, just take a political stand while they're up on the pulpit or
So
anything
it's
like
just a
that.
bunch of like muted language, like in this time of, di- uh, you know, divisiveness, we need to unite and
Yeah, I mean,
remember that
a lot of it is like
Jesus
that.
should be president.
Um, yeah, and I feel like if like I'm close with several pastors around the area, and I feel like if you talk with them one on one, they'll be a little bit more candid. But they don't want to get into a battle on politics while they're up there, and I don't necessarily blame them for that. Um, but yeah, it definitely seems to be watered down, I guess.
Interesting. There's no separation of church and state happening over at First Baptist Dallas.
Is that right?
Yeah, we're always talking about Dallas making national news. There, so there's a Joel Osteen in Dallas. First of all, Robert Jeffers or Jeffries.
Okay.
Um, he's the head dude over at First Baptist Dallas, and he's got billboards, he's got TV ads, he's always praying over the president in the Oval Office, and on his prayer committee, and I think he was on his he was charged with doing something with the whatever the committee is where you transition from like civilian life to being first family. Um, I can't remember what that's called, but anyway, he's been involved and just like this huge apologist for Trump and like going on Fox News and like preaching about it from the front. Like I hear a lot of these big mega churches have been like, you need to get out there and like vote Trump, vote red, do all of this, and like been very political.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's made no qualms about who he supports, and a lot of them are comparing Trump to Cyrus, not even David, Cyrus,
Interesting.
in that and somebody had to refresh me on this the other day. I don't remember which Christian I was talking to, if it wasn't you,
Yeah.
but somebody was telling me that Cyrus is the vessel.
Okay.
I guess the biblical character is used as a vessel for God's will,
Hmm.
and so it's like he can take on whatever form. Like he's an imperfect vessel, but he gets
Yeah.
the job done, and that's how they were viewing Trump. And just also that he was kind of like David in that he was a very flawed person, but could be highly impactful for. I mean, if you're an evangelical Christian and you're pro-life and you don't want welfare and I mean, you're just bleeding red,
Hmm.
Republican. Trump has been your savior. He's got 2 Supreme Court picks at this point,
Right.
and they're young, and like he knows that's the game that they are playing. All of this other stuff they'll put up with, like the Stormy Daniels
Hmm.
and failures and, the language and
Right.
just everything that goes on. They'll put up with all of that just because they think that the sanctity of life and, their personal values are going to be reflected in the next generations of America.
Hmm.
And meanwhile, the Democrats think that climate change is going to wipe everybody out in
Yeah.
12 to 20 years anyway. And like the
S-
future generations' moral fabric won't matter.
Save the turtles, baby. Get rid of those straws.
So so you don't have a whole lot of insight for me there then.
Well, I'm just kind of processing what you said. Like
No,
I
I'm
don't think
asking
I've
about my
considered that
original
take.
question. Like because I had lunch with a big group of Adventists at my parents' house
Hmm.
one Saturday back in 2016, and we were kind of all having a very spirited debate about this because there were some like very liberal people in the room that day um, that were definitely like never Trumpers,
Yeah.
screw that, blah blah blah. But even I found the traditional Adventists, like the ones that are a little bit more like, let's call a spade, like a stay-at-home mom, a breadwinning dad, 2.5 kids, traditional values.
Yeah.
They were more wafting. I don't think they
Hmm.
were giving us their full opinion, honestly. But I very much pointed out, like, hey, if you believe that like Jesus died for your sins and is coming back again to save you, it seems like the popular thing to do is get on this Trump train right now. And it didn't seem like it had the same, um, it didn't have the same effect on Adventists as it did on other Protestants.
Yeah. I mean,
And I could be wrong about that because
dude,
I,
I think it's more like depending on the generation we're talking about. I feel like our parents and the older generation are still like very conservative. Meanwhile, kids younger than myself, like I feel like I'm pretty moderate, and the kids younger than me are very left wing. Um, and that's just been my observation in the church as well, is just how, I don't know, like Trump has like all the Republican values, pro life, all that and everything.
On paper, let's clarify.
Yeah, sorry, on paper. Um, Meanwhile, you have a bunch of kids and they're just like, okay, but what would Jesus do? And it's like, we're not Jesus and we're imperfect and everything. But they're still confused as to why it's like, well, why would people stand up to him whenever, he feels how he does about people on the border? Like whenever, if you're talking about Christian standards, it's like, we should be sheltering people and taking them in, even if it means um, that we could be hurt in the process. And that's just been generally what I've heard from my peers or people around me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a generational thing, not only in our church, but in most faiths, in most groups. I think to a certain extent, like I talk to some people, and it's just if you're 70 plus, you guaranteed voted for Trump. It seems
Right.
like, um, but spoiler alert. I think at this rate, like he definitely gets reelected, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking a couple weeks ago about impeachment and everything, but at this point, there's no way that's going to happen. Like,
I think it's happening. I just don't know if it matters. Like
no, well,
I'm
that's
not
what I'm
really.
saying.
Every day there's like explosive testimony from this person that he's done. Like CNN has
Yeah,
it, and then I flip over to Fox because I like to watch them all, and it's just we have two different stories going on in the country, and ultimately, America's definitely past impeaching presidents for like getting sexual favors or
yeah,
having an extramarital affair, and I think that's good because that's none of our business, and
right.
frankly, I
Well,
mean,
didn't somebody just step down?
yes, and this is an interesting kind of like I heard a funny take on this. I think it was actually on Rogan. Katie Hill, I believe,
Okay.
representative out of California. She's a freshman representative. She just stepped down because apparently she has this husband or ex-husband. They were getting divorced or were already divorced, and he released photos of her having like illicit affairs with not only I think another man but another woman, and I think one of them was a staffer of hers
Mm.
or something of that effect. It was bad enough that she actually just resigned, but the kicker was that she kept calling her husband, like releasing, like the or talking about it and being upset and releasing the video or the pictures or whatever,
Yeah.
emotional abuse. And
Mm.
Rogan was like,
Maybe perhaps
yeah,
that
but if a
act.
woman was releasing anything about a man that was, cheating on her with like both sexes, like
Yeah.
nobody would bat an
Well,
eye.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that's a double standard, and no doubt, I personally believe she should step down. But I also believe that
Why? Why? Just because she likes men and women and doesn't like her husband right now, what does that have to do with her representation of California's whatever district? I mean, not I'm not just playing devil's advocate here, like, So if the CEO of Boeing like messes up and has a one night stand behind his wife's back, should he step down?
yes,
No way. Come on, get out of here. We'd have nobody left. Industry would
we'd
come to a
have
halt.
we'd have faithful people in those positions,
All right.
and then I could trust them to handle business and make the right calls for everything else.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, no, you shouldn't cheat on your spouse. However, if everybody that cheated on their spouse like stepped down from their position, you know, who would who would mine? Who would grow the food? Like, what would we do?
You make a good point.
Okay, so going back to Katie Hill, you do think that she should resign.
I just think that, I mean, typically that's what's happened in the past, but okay, even if she doesn't, I still think there's a double standard on how women are perceived and then how men are perceived, and like people are completely bashing her, but like you said, people
Oh, a
wouldn't really
hundred
bat an eye.
percent.
So scratch what I said about her resigning, but I still think she should be treated just like, if this would have been a male doing it.
Right, and I feel like that's the spirit that I'm trying to harness, which is who cares? Like, go see her naked pics if you want to, and get back to representing us in the meantime.
Yeah.
I think she was. I think she was a Democrat. I don't have all the details on this, but it's kind of funny. It's a big old spectacle, and the minute I saw that she stepped down, I was like, "Oh, you shouldn't have stepped down. Like
Hmm.
you could have just. It would have been gone by next Monday."
Yeah, there would have been
You
another
know?
scandal by then.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember the Virginia governor who wore blackface? Like, who knows how many
I
times?
yeah, I had
He was
forgotten
like, I
until you
can't
brought it up.
remember if that's the photo of me wearing blackface
Or
there or
yeah,
in both.
yeah. Which time was this?
I mean, Trudeau, he's going to be just fine. He wore blackface apparently routinely.
Right.
He did that. The Virginia governor. The thing I don't know about, you remember the Virginia lieutenant governor who was being brought up on rape charges,
Mm,
as it was like their entire infrastructure of like next chain of command was falling apart.
yeah,
But I think they both weathered the storm. So,
I would not be surprised.
dude, if you've learned anything from the age of Trump, it's like, you know, don't bat an eye. Say, yeah, those are my naked photos.
Yeah.
What do you think about them?
You
And
don't need
move
to sweep it
on.
under the rug. You
Yeah.
just cover it up with another scandal.
What does it have to do with how I'm doing my job today? She should have been like, yeah, but look at our economy.
True.
I'm providing website traffic spikes all over the country due to my naked photos. It's good for business.
Mercy.
I don't think she should have resigned. And I do think that the onslaught that she was receiving was probably far worse than, what a man might have received,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, you've had me change my stance on it a little.
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
I think I was just going as like, well, that's not something that I would do. Like, I form my own opinions too, just like everyone else. But yeah, I get the point that you're trying to make.
Yeah, it
I can see
really
that.
doesn't have anything to do with me. And for all we know, like she could have had an arrangement set up with, if she's married, but she's also, going back and forth or something, she might have had a prior arrangement. Like, we really should not judge other people's lifestyles and think that it has everything to do with their work. I mean, by the same token, like, can a gay person be president? Like,
Yeah.
of course they can. But I actually heard, I don't know if, I guess it was Bill Maher or somebody the other day, or no, it might have been Rogan again. They were talking about Buttigieg, and I don't like the way that Rogan, he's funny. He like really just bashed a lot of the Democrats, and rightfully so. But I'm much more positive on Pete Buttigieg myself. I
Yeah.
actually like him a lot. And basically, they were saying though that whenever a representative group gets up into a position of power or notoriety, like hate groups or hate acts against that group go up.
Hmm.
So, in the same way that they felt like maybe Obama, the election of, our first black president in America would just heal all race relations. Some people think that it inflamed them because it brought the people that were more bigoted out of the
Hmm.
woodworks. And they're saying that the same thing could happen for homophobic people. And it kind of struck me. I was like, I, I forgot that that was kind of a thing,
Right. Yeah.
because
It's become more of the norm.
I forget, and I was raised very conservatively where, I didn't know a great number of like open homosexual people around me by
Yeah.
any means. Now, I live in the neighborhood of Dallas, for crying out loud. Like, it's a way of life over here, not for me, but for many of my neighbors who, it's fun though. Like, I love seeing, sometimes my friend will say, oh, he's a guy today. Cause we have this fabulous drag queen that lives upstairs, like competes at all the gay bars over there. And so yeah, the idea of homophobia was almost foreign to me.
Right.
You have to go out to the Westboro.
Yeah. It's like,
Westboro.
oh yeah, there are people still angry about that. Like,
Did you see that the Westboro daughter got converted? Like,
no.
she got on social media, and people talked her over to like the good side, and now she's on like a media tour or something, like talking about her time in that cult essentially.
Interesting.
And it's
Yeah.
everything is a cult, but
Wow.
yeah, I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but I think she's like the daughter of the main pastor or something like that.
Hmm.
Might be worth checking out.
Yeah.
A lot of times, religion and these like perceived race wars and a lot of this stuff seem to go hand in hand. It's I don't know.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I'd be interested to check that out. Um, just to see kind of her story on that.
Yeah, but anyway, Katie Hill should have stayed in. Um, I think that Al Franken should have stayed in. You know,
Yeah.
I think Bill Maher has made that point many times that he was a good, otherwise good senator that made a couple of gaffes that he thought were going to be funny and ended up not being funny. Um, Not excusing his behavior by any means, but at the same time, he's a pretty thoughtful stand-up dude. And I think at that time, the Democrats were just trying to prove, that there were no bad apples on their side, and so that they could enforce like all the resignations on the Republican side as like people were cratering there.
Mm.
But this all goes back. Did I tell you about that doc I watched, The Family?
I think you brought it up maybe during our first or second.
Yeah, I think I talked about it a little bit on the podcast, but some of the guys that we're talking about right now, like Republican governors or whoever that have been unfaithful to their spouse, they were a part of that family, like the family, and those people. It's really, I have to snap myself back to this mindset because I haven't been to like a Bible camp or men's retreat or any of this stuff in a number of years. It's not
Right.
really been as active a part of my life. I've tried to take a more holistic view for myself and, find peace where I may.
How's
But
that work?
yeah, great. Great, folks. No, but I forget whenever I'm looking at that doc, like the concept of forgiveness and any sin that separates you from the glory, like all sin is sin and God doesn't weight it
Right.
like we
Like it's
do.
all equal.
Yeah, it all separates us. So I can't really come down on your pedophilia or your unfaithfulness to your wife. We need to devote it to prayer.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you function in a normal society if like you're employing that spirit 100% of the time?
That would be very difficult. Like I don't necessarily have an answer for it. Like again, you go back to what I tell my students in the classroom, anytime that they have well, this person's messed up, and it's like, well, our job is to love everyone. Like obviously, if somebody's harming you, you get out of that. But our job as a Christian is to love everyone, and it's going to be God's job to judge them. Like if you believe in heaven, we don't decide who gets into heaven. Like that's God's job, and so we just try to point people to Him and treat them as best as we can. And
Yeah, I feel like that is a beautiful sentiment.
it is,
It
and
is beautiful, but
it's much easier said than done.
it ends up it ends up facilitating this sense that everybody is on this bus for the entire ride, and your option to be selective in your own life, in your own personal life, as to who you let in, as to who you get close to, when everything is a witnessing opportunity or everything is like spreading the gospel and
Mm-hmm.
the word of Christ, as these people do, you know, I mean, you're entertaining the bum that's yelling at you on the
Well, yeah,
street corner. You're,
but I'm not suggesting like be preachy to everybody either. Like you can,
but even being accepting and loving is not always appropriate. Like
no,
in certain situations,
you're absolutely
more than
right.
anything, I think the point that I'm arguing is that it's not always productive. Like, you know,
But you can be loving to someone and still like tell them like you are wrong, or like I'm not going to be around you because of this. And I feel like you're also doing that out of love. Like you can cut people off from your life, and you can do that because you love someone and like you care about them, but you also love yourself and care about yourself and know that that's going to harm your life.
and yeah, you're right. You're such a man of wisdom.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man. Like trying to impress upon children and all people, like a general framework of beliefs that you can refer to remind yourself. Like I've been hearing this interesting thread on some of the more kind of deep podcasts that I listen to of, you know, our our memories and what we see and what we think about ourselves, like it forms this whole foundation that may or may not be relevant. Like
Yeah.
because you went to school and became an English teacher, you are an English teacher, and you remind yourself of this apparatus of values, of beliefs, and you look at the crowd and how they look at you for affirmation as to the semblance of a structure you've put around your identity,
Yes.
and your ego is like surrounding that like an atmosphere. And when you just strip all of that away, and it's like well, yeah, we all went to school. Like, you do this, I do that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just a fascinating concept. And I think with meditation, you can kind of have brief nuggets of that, like really cutting through the noise and strip away that you went to school, or like mainly if you're like contemplating some big decision or a problem or something like that. Like, what is the path of least resistance that's most impactful?
Mm.
You know, but this is interesting that, your students are coming to you with a lot of deep stuff. I don't know if
Dude.
it's because you're like this far into the school year and you've established this rapport where they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to text Mr. Brad after school.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like that's it. I don't like. I mean, like I said, I go to all of their soccer games. I go to after school events. Like, I have students that have come in and help like paint and decorate my classroom, and I spend time with them there. I've taken, some that are struggling like out to lunch, and I don't do that so they do confide in me, but that's just like a result of it because I am trying to practice what I preach and like love them and just show them that somebody cares, and so yeah, I mean, and I don't. That's not something that I take lightly. So I definitely agree with you. Sometimes we do have to kind of cut down and like strip away all the noise and everything, and just realize that it's like, yeah, I am just a guy, like just trying to figure it out like the rest of us, and all I can do is really give my opinion on it, and hopefully that gives you some comfort, or I don't know, helps you see things from a different perspective. But yeah, I don't have all the answers. I just try to be there for them. Like, I think there's something to be said about just being present for them rather than having the right answer. A lot of them just confide in me and come to me with their issues because they know I'm going to listen to them. Like, sometimes they just need to get it off their chest.
For sure. And I mean, listening to you, man, like it almost makes me wish that I could just like rinse, slather, repeat, like go back through the system of, indoctrination from fetus to like, if you'd been a teacher. I think it's interesting to see the religious teachers, you know, in the internet era, because a lot of my grade school was like pre-internet, like,
Yeah.
uh,
What difference do you think that makes?
um, well, so first of all, just the abundance of information that we all have, I think, leads us all to suspect um, not everything that we've ever been told is true. I think
Yeah.
looking back, I've pinpointed a lot of spots in my childhood where the inquisitive child, or maybe the child that was bouncing off the walls, or that asked the hard question, you know if Sabbath school or Sunday school or whatever you attend, if that's wrapping up and that little kid is asking a hard
Hmm.
question that is meant for a theologian
Yeah.
or
And it's
something,
like, it's time for potluck.
it's time for potluck. We got to get out of here, second service is starting.
Yeah.
And I feel like with something as precious as what's being claimed at stake here, which is your salvation, like eternal life, it seems like a very flippant, like,
Hmm.
hope you got the message.
Yeah.
Hope it resonated, kid.
Yeah.
Because
See you next
they
week.
used to say if you witness to somebody and they don't accept the message, it's like tying a millstone around their neck and then walking into the ocean.
Yeah.
And so, whenever we used to have those evangelistic series, when I was a kid, we would go. This sounds so cultish when I say it out loud, but we'd go to door to door with flyers and like, hey,
Yeah.
come out to the evangelistic series, and we're going to tell you about the seven-headed monster and all this different stuff from Revelation, and it's going to be super uplifting.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking at many points, I'm like, why am I advertising this? Because nobody's going to believe this. This is
Right.
crazy. And I'm damning them all to hell.
Mm.
Like, I literally was like, I need to keep mum about this so that more people can, because we
Yeah.
also had the belief
That
that
they're going to be judged on what they
based on what they
know.
know. So if
It's
you
like,
don't know
why would
anything,
you tell
why would
them?
I bring it up?
Yeah. I'm with
Seriously.
you.
I struggled. I was like, this is all backwards. And I,
That's a terrible thing to teach.
and parents that are raising children in a religious environment, they don't differentiate. Okay, this is the religious doctrine speaking. Like, here's the framework for doing this versus here's just the common sense. Here's the way to balance the checkbook. Here's the way to do things. Like, when you're raised in a religious environment, you think Jesus wants you to balance the checkbook that way. Like, it
Yeah.
pervades everything. And so I think the delineation of like factors in a situation or what to take into account is sometimes attributed to the wrong things, right?
Right.
But yeah, I used to struggle with that a lot, and I still think that I had a friend. I had a conversation with a friend the other day. I actually have it here on my show notes that he and I had a call last week, and that's meaningful because when he goes home, I can't call him because
Right.
there's no cell towers around. Like he lives out in the boondocks,
Oh my.
and he is. I mean, his dad was a pastor. I think he's I think they go to like one of those 30-person churches type deal,
Got it.
like out in a cabin type deal,
Yeah.
and 5 kids apiece, that type of deal.
Hmm.
And I love this guy. Grew up with this guy. He's one of my closest, oldest friends, and we do not see eye to eye on matters of religion and a lot of this stuff because he is not one of those you're judged based on what you know people. He thinks the people that didn't hear about it, oh well. And
Well,
I was like, that is the most hideous
that's
thing
bleak.
I've ever heard. And he was
Yeah.
like, well, he said, based upon your premise, what you're saying is that salvation is a right, not a gift. And because I was thinking, okay, if you create a world and you create people in the world, every person should have equal access and opportunity to the message that will inevitably save them, right?
Yes.
What he's saying is, hey, if you didn't hear about the invitation to the
Yeah.
party, have fun
Like
burning
tough
forever.
luck. Yeah.
And I was like, in what world?
Yeah.
In
No.
what world? And then I'm arguing for like, I'm arguing for a layer of religion that I don't even necessarily agree with anymore. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I believe or understand the concept as a whole. Like,
Right.
I think maybe it's white people's interpretation of, you know, ancient manuscripts. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. There's great speculation that the burning bush could have been a psychedelic mushroom.
Hmm.
And, I think that there's a lot of like science and different things that can explain phenomena that was often attributed to some sort of religious, it was a god coming down, that God put the bush on fire or God created the major flood. And we've discussed that type of thing where,
Right.
if you're in Hurricane Harvey, it feels like a global flood if you've never been in a boat before, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't struggle with any of that.
No, of course I do, but I know it might seem like a cop out, but you know they say you like have faith, and so I've gone through my doubts and everything, and there are times whenever I still doubt. However, I go back to like I've looked at everything, and I personally would like to believe that there is a God, just because of certain things that I've seen in my life, like certain outcomes that have happened that maybe it only happened because I spoke it into existence, or maybe somebody answered my prayer, like, but just based off of what has happened to me and all the things that I've been through, I choose to believe that there's a God. Um, but going back to like your friend who says, "Oh, well, too bad they didn't know about him." Like, what I tell my kids, because I mean, I've had students that have asked that question, like, "Well, what about the people that were never taught about God?" It's like, well, God still knows your heart, and so regardless of them knowing His name or anything, like He knows your intentions. So if you were always trying to, help out or do good, like two people can do the same action but with different intents. And so it's like, were you trying to be self-serving or were you actually trying to serve others? And I think as long as you're trying to help and serve others, like regardless of you knowing God's name, if you believe in Him, like uh, that will be enough for Him, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just so interesting because I remember sitting in church as a child and thinking, well, how miraculous that I don't have to bother with getting to the message. I was born into it. Like, thank God that not only am I, where I am, but I've been given the truth. And even all of these other people with the almost same similar truth, even they're wrong, man. Like, we've got this. Like, they're
Yeah,
all, I'm in the first band of clouds around Jesus whenever he comes back as
yeah,
a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. But
yeah,
a Baptist, they're trying, they're getting there,
yeah,
but and that I remember feeling that sense of relief in some ways, and sometimes I think that religion done right is just a great self-esteem layer to put on a
yeah.
delusional kid. But I just wonder, I really want to know, it's not enough for me to think, oh, this framework gives me peace. Whatever happens, happens. Like, I want to know what happens for real? Like, I want to know what's going on. And
Yeah, but
so
you may not get that answer.
I'm definitely not going to get that
Yeah.
answer. But that's why it's exciting whenever Trump is elected president and the world's ending and like Katie Hill is resigning and we're sending Elon Musk to Mars and, UFOs and Bob Lazar and like, intelligent life. And
Right.
that's why all that is so exciting because it's like, you know, every time there's a conspiracy theory like that, like new life found on, maybe Mars is habitable or whatever is
Yep.
going on, I think it's like, ooh, maybe something conclusive to believe in or to form a structure of belief around. So it's just an innate human thing to be like, I guess what happens after this? Like,
Right.
what's going on? And I I don't necessarily care what it is. I want to know what it like. I'm excited about the journey of trying to find it because if you look at humanity, we're going to something.
Yeah.
Like if you look at the history of humanity, how are we, in 1000 AD, we're in big castles and warring each other and Genghis Khan or whatever's happening. And then 800 years later, we're still firing muskets in wood houses. And a mere 200 years later, we're like, we've left the world.
Yeah.
We left Earth. Does anything still apply? Like we left where we were supposed to be. We've expanded the bounds of what is our environment, of where we can exist, and it makes you wonder: did we always exist elsewhere? Are we replicas of something else? Are we? I,
Yeah.
I mean, we could go deep with that, but
No, I mean, we could. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for it. Like, that's an interesting thought. Um, but I still feel like all of the like from my beliefs, I feel like all of this happening doesn't negate like the possibility that God exists.
oh no, I think that there's a lot of supporting evidence for that.
Right.
Um, and I think one of the hangups that I typically have when people make statements is like, I'm like, which God? Like the
Yeah.
one that the one that you know everything about, and you know his name and his son and his Holy Spirit and all, or are we talking about whatever this is? Because whatever it is, it's the God,
Yeah.
even if it's a more advanced civilization where the Avatar is for or something, it's
Right.
godlike to us. Um, it doesn't have to be this like white guy with long hair with
Oh yeah.
holes through
No.
his hands for it to be the God that did this. I think that maybe that has something to do with this, or maybe
Yeah.
that's
I mean, if you look at several different religions, like they all have many similar stories. Like they have different names for God, but a lot of the Garden of Eden, the flood, different instances like that. A lot of the stories can be pretty similar, and it's just that we call God by a different name. Like I know that we grew up in Seventh Day Adventism, and so we, Seventh Day Adventists believe that they have the right message, but they're not going to be the only denomination in heaven. So, I mean, unfortunately, there's going to be like several people shocked, or several Adventists shocked whenever they realize that they're not the only people there.
maybe those are the ones not getting in.
I mean they're going to be shocked about that too because they cared more about that goes back to being self-righteous, like they cared more about being right than actually caring for the people that they were trying to convince.
Yeah, I think it's a generational uptight thing because if I look at what my grandparents had to go through and the appearances that they had to keep up versus what my parents had to do versus what my sister and I are now having to do versus any offspring that we were to have in the future, which good luck.
Yeah.
It's an evolution, and I don't know. Having been raised with such firm beliefs and stuff, it's such a craving in so many ways to be able to identify with something and say, I believe in this and I know I'm saved in the blood and all of this stuff. But whenever I've said that stuff, it's left me feeling very hollow. Like my baptism day was like the worst day of my life.
Mm.
Like I was 12 years old and I just felt like I was coming down with the flu because I just felt like they all know I'm a fake. I didn't come out of the water feeling brand new.
Yeah.
Like I hadn't done enough sinning yet to feel renewed, you know?
But whoever made you feel like, whoever gave you the idea that that's what baptism was supposed to do for you, completely failed. Like, because that's not the point of
But
baptism.
it was all the testimonials. It was all the people. I came out of that water and I was a brand new
I
person.
know,
And
but
I was like, oh, that's going to be because all you have as a child is consuming what's in front of you, be it TV
yeah,
or real life. And those are the experiences always shared in church. You know,
yeah,
I was delivered from
but
this.
baptism is there for you to say that, like, you publicly accept Jesus and that you understand that He's the one that took care of your sins. It's not that, like, all of a sudden you're going to be a perfect person. It's accepting
No,
that somebody died
absolutely.
for you.
Right. But I think in that moment, I was just like, oh, man. I remember that day I was like, I don't even believe this.
Yeah,
Like, and I told the pastor in my baptismal classes, I was like, dude, I feel like I'm the person that is completely adept at selling you all of this. And at the same time, I
not
could not
believe.
believe a word
Right.
of it.
Yeah.
So, and he was like, that's fine. That shows that you're, you know, I don't know. You're piercing.
Yeah. Yeah. You were another statistic. Like, a lot of times pastors or churches just try to, say, oh, we were able to baptize this many people this month. And I think sometimes it's just
dude,
like you're another number.
that's how I really lost my faith as I
Yeah.
came of age was that I was actually the social VP of my youth group in church. And I remember thinking like, man, this has nothing to do with the Lord. This has everything to do with like, how many girls am I getting on the ice skating rink this weekend? Like I judged to success in numbers and like, you know, candid pics of everybody, going to the bowling alley or whatever it was. Like I realized that I could organize, bring a bunch of people to a common place, do it in the Lord's name, but receive all of kind of the glory and like
Yeah.
the social perks and come ups from being that person, being that activator. And once I started thinking about things and like realizing it was a business and this church does better business, like they get more
Right.
tithe because they put on a better show and in a better location with better amenities, they have a better coffee bar. Like the competition for church,
It is a
and then I
business.
saw the cyclical nature of people that cycle in and out. Like, oh, I just got divorced. I just kicked drugs. I just got pregnant out of wedlock, and it's time for me to quit partying in the garage,
Yeah.
every weekend and come
Time
to
to re
church.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, time to re up on this goodness, on my purity or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you see my winding experience where
No, I get it.
and I really devoted myself to all of this. Like I wanted to be a missionary at one point.
Yeah.
And, now in certain ways, it's like it feels, I feel a little despondent, maybe is the word, if
Hmm.
that's a good word. Um, Whenever one of my more conservative friends from childhood will hit me up and in a very genuine way say something like, well, have you devoted it to prayer? Or like, just something like, are you an active member of a church family? And it's like a foreign world. So I'm like,
Yeah.
sometimes I laugh and I'm like, oh wow, what do I even say?
Yeah.
Like because I feel like I'm on a morality maturity curve. Like the more mature I get, the more long term moral I get.
Yeah.
Because it's advantageous to me. It's what's
Hmm.
best for
Well,
humanity. It's the best way to go.
and that's how I feel. Like, let's say I'm wrong. I still feel like Christianity and Adventism has made me who I am and, like, made me a good person. Like, because I'm trying to do it right now. Do some people use Christianity for power, or, to make themselves feel good? Like, do they do it for selfish reasons? Sure. But I feel like overall, it's helped me. It's helped base all, like, it's laid down the foundation for my morals, and I feel like I'm a, you know generally good person. Like, so I wouldn't change who I am, and I am the way that I am because of Christianity. I think.
Yeah, it's really weird because like culturally, it's almost like Judaism. It's like, are you a Jewish Jew? Like, are you of birth and religion?
Right.
Like nationality and religion. I feel like SDA is kind of the same way. Not to trivialize the Jewish faith at all, but I'm SDA in that I was born that way. I grew up that way. Like, it's a culture. It's
Hmm.
like there are certain jokes that you could say that only I and our Adventist, listeners
Yeah.
or former Adventist listeners would get.
Right.
And I love that, actually. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's been the pervading thing that I look back on, my childhood with a lot of fondness, is that, uh, the Adventist faith was people filled, family filled, like fun filled activities, getting out in nature, a lot of, kids your age running around, pathfinders or adventures or whatever's going on. Like, I loved all of that.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was not an uptight. It was uptight at times, but it was also very like loving and just the way they wouldn't let a stranger leave the building without somebody taking them home for a meal. Like
Right.
my church, we literally had teams of people where there would be a meal every
Mm-hmm.
single weekend because you didn't let a new person or a straggler.
Yeah.
But then I saw people lose their faith because the same, buttholes would come to every meal and eat it for free, and
Yeah.
they were members. They'd gone through the prayer request line,
Right.
like
Just taking advantage of it. Yeah.
yeah, taking advantage of prayer request time and the lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like, why do the same four people have verbal prayer requests? They have a new lump that they found every single week. Like
Yeah.
that used to be my joke. I'm like, can we
Yeah.
not find a lump this week?
Right.
Like maybe if you devoted less time to prayer and more time to the treadmill, there wouldn't be a lump. Like that.
Literally.
But I'm relaying. I don't feel bad about that. That was my journey. That's how I thought about things, and like, I am who I am. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not like I set out to become angry or
No.
create friction with their prayer request or what. I just remember thinking like they're not living their best life, and they're directing some of this in the wrong. God meets those who meet him halfway was always what I heard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people try to pray for all these issues without like actually taking action and trying to figure it out on their own or take care of these problems. Like I think there's a definite issue with that.
At the same time, I have to just realize what a position of superior strength and just the natural bed of self-esteem that I was plopped into from birth, where it
Yeah.
was just like, here's this amazing family, amazing extended family. Nobody's ever going to do anything. No uncle's going to touch you. Like nothing bad is going to you're going to look up to all of these people. You're going to have a lot of accomplished people around you that are invested in your future. That's
Yeah.
not everybody's plight. So thank God that there's
Yeah.
churches and synagogues and mosques and things like that for people like that.
Right.
It's just a shame when it's weaponized to either hurt people verbally or, in more extreme cases, like the Muslim, usurpation that is ISIS, for
Yeah.
instance. Like,
I mean, yeah, and I don't want to sound passive or just like going back to whenever I said, it's our job just to love everybody. Like, just be a good person. Like, we're not like not one person is going to change the world, but you can change like one life around you, and if enough people do that collectively, you can change the world. Like, maybe that's just me being optimistic or naive or whatever, but I feel like if enough people do it, you can definitely make a difference, and that's why I value like my Christian beliefs. Like, whenever it's done right and not self-serving or trying to make somebody feel bad or guilt them into believing something, um, I feel like it makes a positive impact.
yeah, be the change that you want to see in the world.
That's right, baby.
All right, man, let's get into just a couple little quick current events stories and then we'll get out of here
All
for this
right.
weekly catch up. So I'm looking at my Facebook feed, and it looks like the Nowitzki Street went up. American Airlines Center
Yes.
just posted, congrats to Dirk Nowitzki on this honor. We are so happy to have you and your legacy memorialized outsider. Okay, so it's the street right in front of the AAC.
Mm.
That's cool. There's a picture of him on like a platform, one of those extender platforms up, and that is so
Yeah,
cool.
they unveiled it. Nowitzki Way.
We've got a lot of good vanity plate street names down there, like El Phoenix Way now
Yeah,
is right by the AAC, and now Nowitzki.
that's great. And the Mavs have been pretty fun to watch.
Are we into the regular season?
Yes.
I'm only good for NFL and golf.
I believe
so.
we're 3-1 now.
Really?
Yeah, it's been great. And some of our starters didn't perform very well yesterday, but I believe we had like at least 8 players off the bench to score 10 plus points, which is awesome. Like,
Wow.
yeah,
We got a 6th, 7th, and 8th
that's
man.
what I'm saying. Like, it's just it's going to be a really fun season to watch.
Don't we have don't we have the next iteration of German or Eastern European?
Yeah, we got Luka and
Is-
Porzingis.
Where are they from?
Don't get me lying.
Okay. I just saw so much teasing like on billboards of like playing Dirk out and putting like fading Luca into the picture. So I didn't know if they were common German heritage or what was happening there.
No,
But
I don't believe Luka's German.
man, you really have to think like Dirk put the city on his back. Like you remember all those struggling years in the 80s and 90s or whatever, and then he comes in, plays what 15, 20 years for us, and we forget like he totally won a championship for us. Like
Luka is from Slovenia.
Slovenia, okay. Interesting. Well, that's cool. Congrats to Dirk. Awesome gig. Is Rick Carlisle still our coach? Is Jim Carrey still our coach? The Grinch,
right?
He looks so much like Jim Carrey. And then I have a couple more NBA questions.
Yeah,
actually.
Rick Carlisle.
Okay. Did KD go to the Brooklyn Nets? I think he did.
I think so as well.
And
yes.
Russell Westbrook went to the Rockets. Mm-hmm. He's now with James Harden.
That is true.
Is James Harden a point guard?
Yeah.
Aren't they both point guards?
Yeah, so I don't know who's going to play what.
Well, that's your assignment for next week.
I'm just now getting back into...
Are you a basketball guy? Can you be our basketball correspondent for Weekly Catch-Up?
Yeah, I can start getting back into it. I actually haven't watched since... So we won the 2011 championship. and like, no, listen. Like,
coming to you live 8 years ago.
Yeah. And so I watched the season after that, and I'm like, well, this is a bust. Like, we're not going to have a...
You're like, you remember that great season where we won? So the next season I watched.
Yeah, and it was a bust. And so I just kind of, life happened. And, I was in college, and I started my career. Then I was in Maryland for 2 years and was keeping up with hockey.
You were just digging up an excuse 8 years in the making.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I moved 4 years ago, and all right.
I'm not saying I'm a bandwagon fan, but I do like to watch us win.
We don't have to cover basketball on this show, but if you want to be the correspondent, you can be, because I got golf, and my boy Tiger Woods won the Zozo Championship in Japan.
There we go.
Early on a Japanese Monday morning. It was completely rained out. Second round was completely rained out. But really cool to see this tournament getting like really world-class caliber players. It was really cool because Tiger is going for his 82nd PGA Tour victory. Right? Sam Snead, who's a legendary golfer, he had 82 victories, and it took him like 460 attempts or something like that. Okay. It's taken Tiger like 300 and change. So think about that. Like, basically what we're saying is that 1 out of every 5 tournaments that he's played, he's won in his career.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. Like, Tiger was the last person, you remember, I don't know if you've ever been out to the Byron Nelson with me.
Nope.
But Byron is a great example of like how golf used to be, where like when people would go on a run, I think Byron won 11 championships straight one time.
Man.
And 18 for the year or something, just something crazy.
Yeah.
But Tiger was the last one that had won like 8 out of the last 10 weeks or whatever. But now he's won 3 times in the last 13 months.
He's a monster.
So
he's otherworldly.
It's doing amazing things for our game, and having the youngsters from OSU on the tour too, like Matthew Wolf and Victor Hovland. He's such a cutie pie. I love Victor Hovland. He's from Norway. Dude, like an hour, 2 hours north of here is Stillwater.
Yeah.
OSU has like the best golf program in the world. It's like on par or better than, I think Stanford was always pretty hallowed. I think that's where Tiger went. But yeah, man, shout out to Tiger. I'm just super excited to see him back and dominant, because I mean, have I ever told you the story about, I used to go to the Byron Nelson, being in a real estate family all the time.
Okay. No, I haven't heard.
So my dad would like get us passes to stay at the Four Seasons out there, and like we'd get to go have like these 18th green villa passes where we're like going through buffets and like sitting on the deck, and it was legit. And I grew up going to both the Byron Nelson and the Colonial here in the DFW Metroplex. And one year, one of my dad's best friends got paired up for every year they have the Pro-Am. So the
Yeah.
day before the tournament starts, all the golfers pair up with like a local real estate professional or somebody that's donated for the charitable cause or whatever.
Right.
Well, his friend got paired up with Tiger in a random lottery.
Oh, wow.
And I was going to the Pro-Am, which is like ultra access, much fewer spectators on the course. And I got to follow Tiger from as close as you and I are sitting at times for 18 holes.
And I can smell Carson's cologne, so it's pretty gross.
But that was a highlight. That was back when he was really just, crushing it both on and off the course.
Yikes.
But he was so dominant back then, and he didn't always play the Byron. I don't know if it was the Byron or the Colonial that he would skip, but for many years during my childhood, he was paid in excess of like $1 million just to show up at this tournament overseas on the same weekend as one of those tournaments.
Wow.
But anyway, my idolhood of Tiger Woods, whatever it is, has gone back a long ways. So it's just super cool to see him back on top. And then it was a bye week for the Cowboys, so it was kind of a relief in some ways. Like,
I mean, we came off of a nice win, and hopefully we'll get it back. I believe we play on Monday.
Oh yeah, that's right.
We have a
Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Have you followed World Series at all?
I watched a little bit of yesterday's game.
Me too. Yeah, it looks like the Nationals took it.
Yep.
We're going to Game 7, right?
Game
is
7.
that tonight?
It might be.
I think it probably is.
Yeah, we talked about baseball last time. I'm not.
I'm not either. But that being said, I did read, Joe Buck.
Yeah.
So I read his book, Lucky Bastard.
Okay.
I read it on my Europe trip, and so it was fun to hear him call the game. And like, there's something about the postseason, like the World Series in particular, or the finals in NBA, where I might not have watched a single frame all season, but it's exciting to watch baseball in the World Series for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Game 7 is tonight, so we'll be able to report back with the champions next week.
Word up. Who are you rooting for? I feel like and on the one hand, Houston is close to Dallas, Texas, so it's like Texas, but
they're also like the enemy, right?
We both lived in the DMV.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they are, again, I keep picturing them in the National League. Like, I forget that I used to root for them Rangers, but forget them.
Capitals.
Although I am anxious to check out that new stadium next year.
Oh, no doubt.
We'll have to have a podcast production crew outing.
Yeah, there we go. Then maybe by then I'll get into baseball.
Doubtful.
Yeah.
What else you got, man?
Oh man, that seems to be about it for me. Heading to Austin this weekend, like I said, for my mom's birthday.
Happy
not much
birthday.
else going on. And,
cool, man. Tomorrow's Halloween, and are you dressing up at school, or is that not allowed?
I don't know if it's allowed or not. I'm gonna pass on it.
Saturday was the big block party here in Dallas for all of that.
Yeah, this year it felt like on a weird kind of day. Like I know some people went out last weekend, some are planning to go out this weekend.
I'm just trying to avoid it all. Like
exactly, that's what I'm doing.
I don't like costumes. I don't know. Especially in this neighborhood, it's just difficult to figure out what's going on sometimes. So
right, yeah, just stay indoors.
It's an awful fun holiday, but I don't have a problem with taking a holiday off and then celebrating it hard the next year.
Right.
So I guess until Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thanks for coming over as always. I'm looking forward to catching up with you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Keep mentoring these kids.
Yeah. Keep making these business deals.
Yeah, man. Hopefully I'll have a bunch of updates for y'all next week. I'm not looking to move on anything ASAP. I've really treasured, like, I got bored the other day, and it was really amazing because I needed to let my mind get there in certain ways, like in a controlled environment, to be creative and to really figure out, to meditate, figure out what I want to do. And so I think now I'm making great strides that are of my own volition.
Yeah,
that's
that are important.
I feel good about them, and
I love that.
I'm harnessing. Yeah. Anyway.
Good for you, man. I can't wait to hear more updates.
More to come on that. Thanks for all the support and listeners. A couple housekeeping items. You can find us at weeklycatchuppodcast.com. We're on all of the major podcast platforms. We'll also put this episode on YouTube.
That's right.
episode number 5. I believe this is our longest episode.
Number 5, and it definitely is.
There's like 8 hours of us talking out on the internet, so now they can manipulate it and make us say anything.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, appreciate you coming over.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to all the listeners. Shout out to Gerald. Shout out to my dad.
Gerald, thanks for the tweets this week, Gerald.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. And my dad, faithful listener and giving me feedback. And
your dad is always first listen.
Yeah, man. So I appreciate that, guys.
My mom, she Instagram DM'd me that she was listening to last week's episode, and I was just like, please don't. And I was like, we had to use the bleep button late in the episode, and she hit me up after the episode, and she's like, I don't care about you swearing at all. What I care about is the fact that you said screw baseball. Sorry, Mom. Like, she's like, you're selling me out. And then she also was mad because you were like basically saying at 70, you were like going to be looking to die, like just move on to greener pastures. And I was like, hey, like 67. And then I said that she was in the neighborhood of not even 60. And she was very upset with me over that.
No. Yeah.
But I can say the F word as long as I'm not talking about her age.
Mama Gibbons, we need you to live like to 200. Like I'm trying to go out before you. I don't want to be in a world without you.
Oh, I know, right? Like,
yeah, she's a sweetheart. I love her to death.
Sometimes I just like to remind her, like, you're gonna bury me, right?
And she's not gonna like that.
She doesn't like that at all. But I mean, they are the specimen of health. My parents are health robots, dude.
Man,
they look better than I do.
That is true.
Like fewer bags under the eyes. So. All right, shout out, Renz. All right, man, let's wrap it. Bye, everyone.
Peace out.